I've always wondered how my life would have turned out if I'd followed the path my in-laws mapped out instead of chasing my passion for photography. My name is Mateo Carter, I'm 35, and I'm a freelance photographer living in Boulder, Colorado. With a camera in hand, I've traveled across countries, from the vivid festivals of Mexico to the wild preserves of Kenya. I love what I do and feel genuinely happy every time I capture life's most beautiful moments. But to my in-laws, Robert and Cynthia, none of that means a thing. Cynthia is old school, determined that life must unfold exactly as planned. Since childhood, she's drilled into her daughter, Christina, that real happiness only comes from marrying a man with a steady career and a big paycheck, a lawyer, a doctor, maybe a finance executive. So the day Christina introduced me to the family, the disappointment in Cynthia's eyes was unmistakable. "Mateo, remind me, what is it you do again?" Robert once asked over dinner, his tone thick with doubt. "I'm a freelance photographer, sir," I answered, keeping my voice calm. "Freelance photographer," he repeated, stretching the words as if savoring their contempt. "You think you can support a family, snapping pictures of birds and mountains?" I swallowed hard but smiled politely. "I'm doing pretty well, sir. I just wrapped a feature for an international travel magazine. It more than covers our living expenses." Cynthia looked up, her gaze sharp as a razor. "Comfortable, huh? Mateo, how exactly do you define comfortable? A future hanging on a few photos?" Christina quietly laid a hand on my shoulder, her eyes apologetic. She didn't want a scene, so I took a sip of water and kept silent. But inside, the hurt sliced through my pride like a thin blade. Since marrying Christina, every family gathering has been a silent chess match. Robert probes about income, contracts, what I've done and plan to do. Cynthia deftly resurrects the past, hinting at the better men Christina once dated. "Remember Brian, honey?" Cynthia announced loudly at a packed Christmas party. "He's a senior partner in New York now." "Yes, Mom, I know," Christina replied, squeezing my hand under the table. Christina loves her parents, yet constantly shields me from their penetrating looks. That only fuels my resolve. I'll prove I don't need a shiny suit or a glass-walled office to make her proud of her husband. A week ago, I'd just returned from nearly 3 weeks in Alaska, shooting grizzlies for a major art exhibit. The Arctic wind and hunger of the wild still clung to my bones. The set is enough to cover our costs for a whole year. Yet the moment I stepped through the door, Christina gently said, "Mom invited us to Dad's birthday dinner tonight. I know you're exhausted, but if we don't go, they'll talk." I saw the guilt in her eyes and nodded. "It's fine, love. Just a couple of hours." That night, walking into their upscale suburban Boulder home, I felt a chill, sharper than any winter gust. Cynthia greeted me with an overly wide smile and a glass of red wine. "Dear Mateo, I prepared this just for you," she said, eyes shining like a frozen lake. I took the glass and an icy ripple ran down my spine. A primal warning told me tonight's party would be anything but ordinary. I raised the glass, pretending to sip, but instead swirled the liquid under the soft yellow lights of the living room. Something faint, a thin haze you'd miss if you weren't looking, floated on the surface. I set it on a side table, feigned a cough, and excused myself for water in the kitchen. No one noticed. Robert was busy recounting a new real estate deal, Cynthia laughing with close friends, none of whom cared about me. As usual, Christina tried to bridge the gap with light topics whenever conversation veered toward my work or income. Standing in the marble-tiled kitchen, pouring myself water, my mind flashed through silent red flags. There had been signs, but I'd never wanted to believe they were this serious. Not long ago, at a Christmas party, I'd stepped out back to take a client call and overheard Cynthia whispering to a friend. Christina could have married Mason, that brilliant doctor, 3 properties in Aspen, and she chose Mateo, a freelancer. Such a shame. I'd frozen under the twinkling lights, the chill cutting deeper than the winter air. I'd told myself it was idle gossip, that time would soften things. Reality proved far harsher. Robert doesn't bother hiding disdain. At every gathering, he reminds me of the real world, where a real man earns a living from real work. not roaming around photographing birds and mountains. "Your photos are lovely," Robert quipped over dinner once, half joking, half mocking. "But when Christina wants a baby, you plan to feed it with printed pictures?" Christina gripped my hand, sadness clouding her eyes. She's torn between love for me and her parents' towering expectations. Cynthia is subtler. Instead of head-on conflict, she nudges me aside by omission. At her grandson's birthday, she mailed invitations with my name missing. When Christina asked, Cynthia laughed. Oh, a typo, though her eyes said otherwise. Family photos lining their hallway never feature me. Whenever group shots happen, Cynthia splits us. Blood relatives first, then abruptly ends the session before I can join the frame. I'd overheard Cynthia telling friends, Christina was so happy with Mason. Everything planned out, secure, and now? She'd trail off, leaving a heavy silence hanging. I'm not thin-skinned, but the steady, relentless nature of their contempt wears you down like a dull blade over time. Tonight, spotting that strange wine, I realized it was time to open my eyes. This wasn't mere disrespect or snide remarks. Behind the sweet smiles lay something darker, quietly unfolding. Christina returned to the kitchen, eyes gentle yet worried. "You okay?" she asked, brushing my hand. "I'm fine," I whispered, but deep down I began stitching together every odd incident. A larger picture emerged, and in that picture I saw I'd never truly been accepted. Not because I wasn't good enough, but because I was never the man they wanted. I squeezed Christina's hand, offering a reassuring smile. The party was far from over, and I was ready to watch and listen. Closely. Whatever secrets simmered beneath this polished gathering, I sensed tonight it would no longer stay buried. I walked back into the living room, a glass of water in hand, trying to keep my face as neutral as possible. Soft piano music drifted from a speaker in the corner, and the chandelier's light glinted off the wine Cynthia had just handed me. I spotted Robert chatting with a friend, lazily swirling his whiskey, while Cynthia stood beside Christina laughing now and then, glancing my way to see if I'd taken a sip. I strolled toward the table, picked up the wine Cynthia had given me, and, in one smooth, casual move, swapped it with Robert's glass as he turned to slap his friend on the shoulder. His wine had been sitting untouched. No one noticed the switch, but me. "Mateo, try that wine. I picked it especially for you," Cynthia called from across the room, her smile painted on with ice-cold precision. I lifted my water and smiled. "I'll save the wine for later, Miss Cynthia. I'm really thirsty." Her eyes narrowed for a second, but she quickly slipped back into pleasant conversation, as if nothing had happened. Robert's birthday party rolled on with toasts, big laughs, half-heard stories. I kept calm but never took my eyes off Robert. He drained the switched wine in less than 10 minutes. By the time dinner started, I noticed color blooming up his neck, then beads of sweat sparkling on his forehead, even in the cool air conditioning. Robert dabbed his face again and again. When dessert arrived, he suddenly lurched to his feet, knocking his chair over. I need to," his voice rasped. Without waiting for questions, he staggered toward the bathroom. The sounds echoing from behind the door silenced everyone. Violent retching, water rushing, muffled groans. Cynthia went pale, fingers crushing her napkin. Christina shot up, ready to follow, but I gently caught her wrist. "Let me go with Dad," she whispered, eyes wide. I nodded and released her. While the room spun in worried confusion, I quietly lifted the original wine glass Cynthia had given me, wrapped it in a napkin, and slid it into my jacket pocket. Half full, the surface still shimmering under the lights. Holding something Cynthia never wanted me to discover. Cynthia stood frozen, eyes darting to me in panic, before shifting into a mask of concern. Guests murmured, and the earlier buzz vanished like it had never existed. "I'm sure it's just food poisoning," Cynthia said, voice trembling as she tried to stay composed. "He had seafood for lunch at a restaurant." I said nothing. Inside, my anger didn't blaze. It iced over. If I hadn't been cautious, the man doubled over in that bathroom could have been me. Christina helped Robert back to the sofa. He was chalk white, hands shaking, like someone who'd survived a storm. He muttered, "Must have been lunch." Cynthia clutched his arm, anxious to kill any questions. "I'll take him to the hospital just to be safe," she announced. Christina turned to me, worried. "Can you give Mom a ride home later? I'm going with Dad." "Of course," I said, squeezing her hand. When the car carrying Robert and Christina disappeared down the street, I faced Cynthia. She stood in the doorway, bloodless, hands locked as though praying. But when our eyes met, I saw it. She wasn't worried about Robert. She was terrified of being exposed. I smiled, not warmly, but with the calm of someone who'd finally seen the board and every piece on it. That night, driving home alone with the wine glass secured in the trunk, I swore to myself I'd uncover the truth. I wouldn't hold back. No more pretending ignorance. No more silent endurance. Cynthia's game had started, and I was ready to play. I didn't sleep. The wall clock ticked slowly in the small apartment while questions raced through my mind. I needed facts, hard evidence, not hunches. Next morning, I drove to see an old contact, Lucas Morgan, who ran a private lab I'd once worked with on public health photo projects. Lucas was the kind who asked few questions if you had a good reason. "I need this liquid tested," I said, handing over the glass sealed in plastic. "Focus on tranquilizers and psychoactive drugs." Lucas squinted. "Family trouble?" "Exactly," I said. "The sooner the better." He nodded and promised to call with results. 3 days later, Lucas phoned while I was editing Alaska shots in the studio. His voice was brief but heavy. "Mateo, that glass contained benzodiazepines, high enough to knock someone out, cause deep sleep and temporary memory loss, even unconsciousness in weaker people." I collapsed into my chair, fingers clenching the phone. "Benzodiazepines?" I echoed, needing to hear it again to believe it. "Right. Not lethal, but serious. You're sure this is just a family matter?" I closed my eyes. "I'm sure. Thanks, Lucas. Please send the full report." Hanging up, I sat silent. Every earlier suspicion now stood in plain sight. Someone, and I knew exactly who, had spiked my drink. Confrontation could wait. If Cynthia dared go this far, I'd only skimmed the iceberg's tip. While Christina pulled late nights at the university library, I dug deeper. Public records, local whispers, anything I could find. It didn't take long to spot red flags. Cynthia held 3 different prescriptions for the same drug: alprazolam, brand name Xanax, another benzodiazepine. Each script came from a different doctor, clinics dozens of miles apart. Some renewals were suspiciously large. Rumors surfaced. At a golf club party, Cynthia allegedly pocketed a friend's diamond bracelet. At a library fundraiser, she behaved oddly, slurring her words before leaving early. Other petty incidents, missing items, strange misunderstandings, heated disputes, added up to a damning portrait. A portrait of a woman, nothing like the flawless image Cynthia showed her daughter. I saved every piece of evidence I found, printed it out, sorted it into tidy folders as meticulously as I edit my photos. If I ever had to face Cynthia and Robert head-on, I wasn't going in unarmed. One evening, while I was sealing a thick envelope of documents, Christina walked into my studio and dropped her purse onto a chair, exhausted. "What's got you so focused?" she asked, slipping off her coat. "Just compiling a few old photo projects," I said, trying to sound casual. She managed a weak smile, then headed for the bedroom, suspecting nothing. Hiding the truth from her stabbed at me. But without all the proof in hand, my words would be hollow against the wall Robert and Cynthia had built around her since childhood. I watched her disappear behind the door, then turned back to my desk. I needed more time, more evidence, and, above all, a careful plan. If I failed, I wouldn't just lose Christina's trust. I could lose her for good. I knew I couldn't stall any longer. The truth was crystal clear, and if I hesitated, the only one getting hurt wouldn't be me. Christina deserved to know who her parents really were, no matter how bitter the truth. I picked a Saturday afternoon while Christina attended a conservation seminar. I drove to Robert and Cynthia's house with an independent lab report, printed prescriptions and notes on Cynthia's buried incidents locked in the trunk. Their mansion was pristine as ever. Manicured flower beds, brick driveway gleaming like glass. But I didn't feel like a guest on foreign soil. I'd come to settle the score. Cynthia opened the door, her smile freezing for a beat when she saw the large envelope in my hand. "Mateo?" She faltered, then regained her usual grin. "Christina's not here. If you need—" "No, Mrs. Cynthia," I cut in, voice steady. "I'm here for you." She stepped back as I entered. I didn't sit on the plush sofa. I stood in the living room, late afternoon light casting long shadows across the white walls. "I think," I began, "it's time we had an honest talk." Her fingers clenched the hem of her jacket. "I don't know what you're implying." I opened the envelope and laid the toxicology report on the coffee table. Cold, clear words. Benzodiazepines detected. High concentration. Cynthia's eyes flicked over the page. For an instant, the facade she'd worn for years cracked. She forced a smile. "Mateo, you must be mistaken. Wine can sometimes—" "I also have prescriptions," I interrupted, sliding copies from different clinics beside the report. 3 scripts for the same drug from 3 doctors. And that's not all. I paused, giving her time to grasp that I knew everything. Cynthia sank into a chair, her jaw trembling. The first time I'd seen her without that arrogant certainty, only raw calculation. "Fine," she sighed, voice sharp as a blade. "What do you want?" "Want?" I gave a cold laugh. "I want to know why you did it." She lifted her chin, eyes flashing defiance. "Christina has a brilliant future," she said, anger making her voice shake. "A future you'll ruin with your so-called photography. A real man needs a steady career, a long-term plan, a respectable house, not a camera and wanderlust." I clenched my fists. "And drugging my wine protects her future?" She scoffed. "Not to hurt you? Just to make you miss that exhibit? You'd lose credibility, Christina would start doubting, and she'd realize you're not the right man." Each word stung like an icicle. My chest tightened. Not from rage, but disgust. "Here's what happens next," I said, voice low and hard. "I have this report. I have proof you're abusing prescription drugs. I have community rumors documented." Leaning over the table, I locked eyes with her. "If you keep trying to sabotage our marriage, spread lies, drive a wedge, every file goes to the medical board, the golf club, even the local press." Cynthia went chalk white, forcing a bitter smile. "Christina will never believe you. She loves this family." I straightened, picking up the envelope. "Then try me," I said, icy calm. "I don't need her to choose between us. I just need her to see the truth. And she will." I turned and walked out without looking back. The sun had slipped behind the distant mountains, night settling heavy and dark. Yet inside me, a fierce light blazed brighter than ever. This fight wasn't just for me. I was fighting to protect a love worth every battle. I thought Cynthia would realize it was over after that confrontation, that I wasn't silent prey anymore. But I underestimated the desperation of someone used to control. 2 days later, while editing a hotel shoot in downtown Boulder, my phone rang. Christina's voice sounded strained. "Can you come home early tonight?" she asked. "What's wrong?" "Mom told me that when you went over, you threatened her," she said slowly. "She claims you yelled, slammed documents, and threatened to smear the family name." I froze, staring at my laptop screen. "And you believe her?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "I don't know," Christina sighed. "She was so emotional telling it. Dad says he heard loud noises. I don't understand what's happening." My grip tightened on the phone. Cynthia had struck first, painting me as violent, unstable. Someone Christina should fear. "Christina," I said quietly, "you know me. You know I would never do that." "I know," she whispered. "But they're my parents, Mateo. I grew up with them. I've never seen Mom lie about something this big." I closed my eyes, a sharp ache pulsing at the base of my skull. This wasn't just a fight for my reputation. It was a battle for the fragile trust between 2 people. "I'll be home soon," I said. "We'll talk." When I walked into our apartment, Christina sat gripping a mug so tight her knuckles were white, warmth gone from her brown eyes. I didn't slam anything or threaten anyone, I began softly. I presented facts: a drugged wine glass, an independent report, overprescribed meds, stories she buried. Christina bit her lip. Mom says you made it all up to split me from the family. Then why, I asked, voice dropping, does an innocent person need a brand new lie? She didn't answer right away. I saw the war inside her. Love for her blood family versus faith in the partner she chose. I need time, Christina finally whispered, setting her mug down as if it weighed a ton. I need to think. Those soft words hit me like a punch to the chest. I nodded and stood. I understand. That night I lay on the sofa staring at the dark ceiling, replaying 100 conversations and 1,000 moments with Christina. Smiles, glances, warm handshakes, now fractured under the weight of doubt. Alongside the sadness, a quiet resolve flared inside me. If Cynthia and Robert thought they could destroy me with lies, they were wrong. I wouldn't fight back with rage. I'd answer with truth. Undeniable truth that would crack even the strongest walls they'd built in Christina's mind. I wouldn't battle alone. I just needed someone else they'd hurt. Someone brave enough to stand in the light. One name flashed like lightning. Vanessa, Christina's sister-in-law. Maybe she'd seen this family's dark side too. If so, I knew my next move. 2 days after confronting Cynthia, I was polishing the final shots for my biggest upcoming exhibit when Christina opened the door. Her face held a heaviness I'd never seen, a deep worry she couldn't hide. "What's wrong, Christina?" I asked softly. She sat opposite me, fingers interlocked. Drawing a long breath, she chose her words carefully. "Mom just called. She says when you went over, you acted strange. Threatening, even." My brow furrowed, my heart kicked faster though I kept calm. "Threatening?" Christina's eyes were uncertain. "Mateo, she claims you threatened to release fake documents, to smear her if she didn't support our marriage. She says you yelled, 'We're really aggressive.'" I let out a small laugh, then saw Christina wasn't amused. I turned serious. "Do you think I'd actually do that?" She stared at the floor, confused. "I don't know, but why would Mom lie? Did something happen between you two?" I inhaled, wrestling with whether to reveal everything now or risk shattering her world between love for me and loyalty to her parents. "I only wanted her to face a few facts," I answered carefully. "I never threatened or hurt anyone. You know me." Christina nodded faintly, still unconvinced. "Mateo, you've been different lately. I know my parents aren't perfect, but they've never tried to harm you. I honestly don't know what to believe anymore." I touched her hand. She quickly pulled away, as if even my touch added confusion. My heart sank. That night I tried calling Cynthia, but she didn't answer. Minutes later, a text popped up. "Think carefully before you act, Mateo. Don't make Christina the victim of your choices." I stared at the message, anger simmering. Cynthia's counterattack struck my weakest point: Christina's trust and love. Next morning, things got worse. The gallery hosting my biggest show called. The manager sounded tense. "Mateo, we got an anonymous tip saying you're involved in personal scandals and threatening your in-laws. We need clarification before proceeding." I froze. Cynthia and Robert had a new tactic: attack my reputation and career. "None of that's true," I said firmly. "Just a personal misunderstanding. It won't affect the work." "I hope so, Mateo. We respect you, but the gallery can't afford trouble." Hanging up, I felt caught in an invisible storm. Christina was shaken by her mother's lies. Years of work risked collapse after a few anonymous calls. They weren't striking directly, but using Christina's love and others' trust to bring me down. That afternoon, Christina came home, eyes red, likely after another talk with her mother. "I need some space, Mateo," she murmured without meeting my eyes. "I'm staying at my parents' a few days to sort this out." "Christina," I tried to stop her, but she stepped back. "Please don't say anything. I need clarity," she said, turning away. The door closing behind her felt like a temporary period on everything I'd believed in. I stood alone, wondering if I was losing a game I never wanted to play. Then I realized the fight wasn't over. I was battling not just for truth or myself. I was fighting for Christina, and whatever the cost, I couldn't quit. 3 days after she moved out, I got a late evening call. The familiar yet tense voice said, "Mateo, it's Lauren, Ethan's wife. I know this is sudden, but I really need to talk." Lauren usually avoided family conflict. Her call meant something serious. "I'm listening, Lauren," I replied quickly. "It's about Cynthia. I believe you." Her voice trembled. "I have something you need to see. It'll clear everything up." "What is it?" My heart sped up. "Meet me at the cafe on 14th. Tell no one." 20 minutes later, I sat in a dim corner of the small cafe at 14th and Pine. Lauren waited, hood up, as if she didn't want to be recognized. As soon as I sat down, she slipped a tiny USB drive into my palm. "All the proof you need is on here. Ethan has no idea I'm doing this, and he wouldn't believe it anyway. To him, Cynthia and Robert are perfect, but I know better than anyone." "Lauren, this is—" I started, but she cut me off. "Just watch it, and be careful." That night, I plugged the USB into my computer. Video files filled the screen. The first clip stopped me cold. A security camera captured Cynthia in her kitchen the night of Robert's birthday dinner. I could clearly see her holding a dropper bottle, sneaking several drops of liquid into the glass of red wine meant for me. Her face was icy, deliberate. The next video was even worse. It showed Cynthia and Robert in their living room later that night, after the guests had left. Robert's voice rang out. "You were careless, Cynthia. How did Mateo swap the glasses?" Cynthia snapped back. "How was I supposed to know he'd be that cautious? If everything had gone right, he'd be out cold by now. Christina will start doubting him once he keeps missing important events. Just a few more times, and she'll see he can't be trusted." I sat frozen, unable to believe what I was hearing. Christina's own parents had plotted to break us up in the filthiest way imaginable. More videos revealed even more. Robert and Cynthia had held similar talks about Christina's previous relationship, with a doctor named Mason, the one Cynthia always mentioned wistfully. "Remember how smoothly we handled it last time?" Cynthia said casually. A few fake texts, a little misunderstanding, and Christina dumped that doctor on her own. Robert nodded, smug. "She always trusts us. This time will be the same. Get Mateo under suspicion and she'll run right back." I leaned back and closed my eyes, forcing myself to breathe. These weren't just recordings. They were a declaration of war. Cynthia and Robert had no intention of stopping. They would wreck our marriage at any cost. I had to act immediately, but the hardest part was Christina. I could show her these videos, but could she face the horror that her own parents were behind all this? I called Lauren again. "Thank you, Lauren. You have no idea what this means. I've felt the sting of not being good enough for their family," she said, voice shaking. "I won't let them do it to you, but be careful. They won't back down easily." I hung up and stared out the apartment window into the deep night. The fiercest battle of my life was coming, and I was ready. For Christina, for love, for truth. I had nothing left to lose. They were not going to win. A few days later, I organized everything, the videos, the lab report, the prescription records, all stored neatly on an external drive. Christina needed to see with her own eyes that this wasn't feelings or theories, it was undeniable fact. I texted her to come over Saturday night and asked her to bring Ethan and Lauren. I gave no details, only that it was family critical and had to be settled once and for all. That evening, when Christina entered the living room, I sensed the caution in her eyes. Ethan followed, stiff-faced, Lauren close behind him for support. "What's so serious, Mateo?" Christina asked, setting down her purse. I drew a long breath. "Before I answer, I need you to watch this." I hooked my laptop to the big TV. Blue light washed over anxious faces. I played the first file, the clip, of Cynthia dosing my wine in the kitchen. The room airlocked in an instant. Christina covered her mouth. Ethan frowned, staring at the screen, unable to process what he was seeing. I didn't stop. One by one, I played the recordings. The argument between Robert and Cynthia after the party. Their admission of a plan to smear me. The cold discussion about sabotaging Christina's relationship with Mason. Each clip was a razor-sharp cut, severing the illusions Christina and Ethan had clung to for years. When the last video ended, the room fell into absolute silence, broken only by the dry ticking of the wall clock. Christina turned to me, eyes red, voice hoarse. "How long have you known all this?" "Not long," I said, holding her gaze. "But you needed to see it yourself, not just hear it from me." Ethan hunched forward, staring at the floor. Lauren quietly laid a hand on his shoulder. Finally, Ethan looked up, voice trembling. "Yes, this isn't our parents. They would never do this." Lauren squeezed his shoulder. "I'm sorry, Ethan, but you have to face the truth." Christina paced the room, stopping at our wedding photo. Her hand shook as she touched the frame. "All this time," she whispered, "I believed if I was good enough, tried hard enough, they'd love me unconditionally." I stepped closer but kept a respectful distance. "Christina," I said gently, "you've done nothing wrong. Real love doesn't come with conditions, doesn't force you to choose between your happiness and someone else's expectations." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "What do I do now, Mateo?" she asked, almost sobbing. I stayed silent. The decision had to be hers. With shaking hands, Christina dialed Cynthia and put the call on speaker. 2 rings. Cynthia answered, in her usual sweet tone. "Sweetheart, I was just about to call you." "I've seen everything, Mom," Christina cut in, voice firmer than ever. "The cameras, the recordings, everything. I know what you and Dad did." Silence, then Cynthia let out a short, forced laugh. "Oh, darling, don't believe those tricks. Mateo is just trying." "That's enough, Mom," Christina said, voice trembling but clear. "From today on, Mateo and I will run our own lives. You don't get to control or interfere anymore." Cynthia started shouting, but Christina ended the call. She turned to me, eyes still red, yet blazing with resolve I'd never seen. "We're done with them," she whispered. I pulled her into a tight embrace. She didn't pull away. Her tears weren't confusion or pain anymore. They were relief. Ethan and Lauren nodded quietly. The tension in the room began to lift. At last, the mask of perfect family had shattered. There was no going back. But at least now we could start a new journey, living our own lives, no longer puppets in someone else's play. Robert didn't take long to strike back. 3 days after the truth came out, I got a friendly invitation to his top 4 office in downtown Denver. Thick carpet, cedar scent, fresh coffee. Robert waited in a sharp gray suit, his smile impeccably fake. "Mateo, thanks for coming. Let's talk like grown men." I sat tall. "I hope so, Robert." He poured 2 glasses of aged single malt. The sun set, turning the room a cold copper. "Christina means a lot to my family," he began carefully. "What happened is unfortunate. The best way to forgive and move forward is to look to the future." He slid a thick envelope across the desk. "A job offer," he exhaled. "My firm is launching an imaging division. I want you to head it. Starting salary, $200 grand, stock bonuses, housing, and car allowance. A big step up from wandering around shooting wildlife, right?" I didn't open it, just felt the stack of contracts. "And in return?" "With that," he smiled, "you dial things down publicly. You clarify that my mother," he corrected himself, "that Cynthia meant no harm. Family stays family, Mateo. And most importantly, stability. No more risky trips dragging Christina along. Stay in Denver, build a solid career." I swirled the amber liquid. "Are you buying me, Robert, or my silence?" "Don't be crude," he said softly. "I'm offering you an opportunity you'd never land on your own." I set the glass down and pushed the envelope back. "The only opportunity I need is to live my passion and keep my integrity. Thanks, but I'll pass." His smile vanished. He leaned forward. "You're risking Christina's future for this passion?" "My Fujifilm has supported us in her trust just fine," I said, voice like steel. "That passion just opened her eyes to your lies. I won't trade it for anything. Robert drew a sharp breath, eyes flashing cold. You'll regret this. I'm prepared to. I rose, shut the window slightly to block the draft, and headed for the elevator. As the doors closed, I could still hear Robert's prideful breathing, a man used to dictating who others should be. That evening, I found Christina on the sofa holding a black and white ultrasound print. She looked up, equal parts worried and glowing. How did it go with Dad? She asked softly. He tried to recruit me, I said, slipping an arm around her. I didn't sign my soul away. She smiled, hand trembling as she placed the image in mine. Good, because I have bigger news. She inhaled. I had a checkup today. 6 weeks, Mateo. My eyes locked on the tiny bean-shaped figure. My heart pounded. We're going to be parents? Christina nodded, tearful. Yes. And I won't let anyone, even my parents, dictate our child's life. I held her tight, our hearts beating as one. The layers of tension, doubt, and fear peeled away in that moment, leaving pure joy and a silent vow. We would protect this family at all costs. Christina leaned back, wiped her tears, then straightened up. Tomorrow, I want to go straight to their house and tell them everything. No hiding, no asking permission. This is our path. I nodded, full of respect. I'll be by your side every step. She squeezed my hand. I know, and no matter how many shiny promises or threats they throw at us, I won't budge. This baby deserves to grow up in honesty, not schemes. Outside, the city lights stretched like an artificial Milky Way. I'd never seen the road ahead so clearly. Trials still waited, but at least Christina and I shared one direction, one breath, and soon, one little life to protect from controlling hands. I gripped the ultrasound, placed it in a frame, and told myself, Robert can sway stocks, Cynthia can spin rumors, but they will never buy Christina's heart, much less our child's future. Our battle isn't over, but now we're fighting, with more than truth. We're fighting for family. 3 months after the final showdown, a certified overnight envelope landed at our loft door. The return corner bore a top Denver law firm's logo. Christina opened it. Her legs shook as she saw the thick, embossed papers. I stood beside her, hearing the crisp shuffle and feeling the tension stretch the sunlit room. Inside was the trust document for the Little Cedar Fund. Beneficiaries: Christina Carter, Mateo Carter, and any children of this marriage. Attached was a deed transferring full ownership of the 2-story cedar house in the foothills we'd rented for a year. Title fees, taxes, every cost already paid. Grantors: Robert and Cynthia Hadley. No apology letter, no explanation, just one dry line on the final page. As assurance for Christina and our grandchild's future. Christina set the stack on the table, eyes wet but no longer angry, only bone-deep tired and faintly relieved. I hugged her from behind, feeling our 6-month baby shift in her belly. Since announcing the pregnancy, Christina had cut every meddling call from her parents. Ethan stayed silent with Robert for weeks, texting me only to check on his sister and the baby. No shouting, no sabotage, but no attempts to mend things either. At dawn, we drove up to the foothills. The winding road sliced through spring pines, the air scented with sap and damp earth. Our new house appeared on a wide clearing. Cedar roof, porch hammock, huge windows over a green valley. The key waited in the mailbox with a simple card, home. Christina laughed. Thin but real. She walked slowly through the doorway, touching the granite counter, then the window frame, where morning sun poured in. I quietly snapped a photo of her standing in the empty room, hand on her bump, eyes distant yet peaceful. That shot later became the first print hanging in my new studio. The following week settled into a strange, gentle rhythm. I outfitted a basement studio and edited environmental magazine work. Christina took early maternity leave, spending afternoons in the porch rocker reading, sometimes whisper-talking to the baby. Ethan and Lauren visited every weekend, bringing organic groceries and harmless office gossip, never mentioning Mom or Dad. Robert and Cynthia kept an absolute distance. Occasionally, their lawyer emailed updated trust statements and clear investment ledgers. No handwritten notes, no personal inquiries, everything precise and orderly. Exactly Robert's style, turning emotion into a financial line item, letting bank balances speak where apologies would not. Late in May, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a luxury SUV pull away, leaving a small wooden box. Inside was a silver frame engraved Carter Family and a check for $50,000 made out to the Alaska Grizzly Conservation Fund, the magazine project I'd been shooting. In Robert's neat blue ink, "Keep pursuing your passion." R. Still not an apology, but at least a silent nod that he now saw me as a professional he once dismissed. Christina eyed the frame and sighed. "They'll never say sorry outright." "No need," I said, setting it on the shelf. "What matters is they respect our boundaries." Now, she nodded, warm and steady fingers curling around mine. In August, our baby girl was born at the local hospital, thick black hair and deep brown eyes. We named her Aria Cedar Carter, blending Christina's love of music with the cedar forest surrounding our new home. The first text on my phone, after Aria's first cry, came from Robert's number. "Congratulations. If you need any medical support, let me know." I replied only, "Thank you. Mom and baby are healthy, nothing more." 2 weeks later, Robert and Cynthia visited, stopping on the front porch with a newborn gift basket. They asked if they could come in. Christina looked at me, then nodded. The visit was brief and polite. No tears, no arguments. Cynthia held Aria for a few minutes, her eyes shining with a raw emotion no scheme could hide. Robert leaned over, rasped, "Congratulations," set a teddy bear in the bassinet and left before dusk. Their promise not to interfere held, even when they stood less than 6 feet from their newborn granddaughter. After that, our relationship stayed cool but civil. A Thanksgiving card in the mail. Christmas gifts delivered under the tree by courier. Short health cutoffs emails. No more midnight calls. No critiques of my career or our parenting. The invisible strings of control had been cut and replaced with respectful distance. At my fall gallery opening, the series Freedom in Focus drew the biggest crowd. Center stage, a shot of Christina holding Aria by the foothills window, late afternoon sun bathing their smiles in gold. The caption read, "A moment worth more than any compromise." When I cut the ribbon, I looked around. Friends, colleagues, Ethan and Lauren, even new neighbors. Robert and Cynthia weren't there, but I didn't feel their absence. They were simply beyond the boundary they'd set, and that was enough. I squeezed Christina's hand and listened to Aria babbling in the bassinet behind the counter. For the first time since entering the Hadley family, I felt completely light. No dramatic victory, no perfect truce. Just living true to our values and letting silence settle the rest. That unspoken ending said more than any verdict. They offered freedom through assets and a trust. We returned clear boundaries and minimal respect. Every cut had scarred. Sensitive in bad weather, but it would bleed no more. I snapped one photo, Christina laughing, Aria flinging her arms, gallery lights sparkling. No caption needed. Happiness isn't something to buy or trade. It's what comes from standing firm in the storm and keeping peace when the clouds break. Mateo's story shows the power of healthy boundaries. When we stick to passion, expose truth, and guard core values, even toxic family ties must adjust. Silence replaces control. Material gifts become an unspoken admission that love can't be bought or forced. Above all, Mateo and Christina learned lasting happiness grows from courage to walk through the storm, not from anyone's approval. What do you think of the way Mateo protected his family and boundaries? Drop a comment with your thoughts or advice for them, and don't forget to follow the channel and hit the bell so you won't miss the next real-life story.